Okay, guys. Hey, welcome back. This is Cornerstone Marketing again, and we'd like to talk to you today about a ticker that we're really interested in. This is ticker MIKP. If you're not familiar with it, it is a ticker that is associated in the film industry. So if you're a movie buff like I am, this is one that you're going to really like to hear about. So first off, before we start the video, I've got to give a huge shout out to my boy Harry. Harry is a member of the Cornerstone Marketing Discord, which, please join. It's a really fun place to be. We have daily shout outs to people. We have alerts. We have D&D packages. Of course, we have shareholder calls with lots of different OTC, OTCQB, and we have upcoming ones with NASDAQ companies. It's a free Discord. Everybody's welcome to join. We like to talk. We play around. We do jokes. And other cool things happen too. So Harry's a good friend of mine. He is what we would call a Philly fanatic. He's from Philadelphia. He's a cool guy. During Philadelphia's playoff run last year, he sent me some cool Philly gear because he loves Philadelphia. So he sent me this Philadelphia sweater, authentic Eagles gear. He also sent me this really sick ass Philly shirt and hat, and I did promise to wear it in my next video. So Harry, here's the gear being worn in the video as promised, and thanks so much, bro, for it. I love it. I am at heart a Seahawks fan, but you're converting me to a Philadelphia as my second team. So go Birds. Any bird, right? So thanks, Harry. Love you, bro. I appreciate it. And there's your shout out, man. Thank you. So let's talk MIKP. So MIKP just recently became pink current after being stuck in EM for a long time. They had some bad actors and stuff stuck. That's all history. What matters today is they are a fully reporting SEC company. So in the OTC, there's not a lot of them. Most of them are using alternative reporting practices, which of course is sketchy. We don't like that. So having an SEC reporting company gives you a lot of clarity. So let's take a look at who these guys are. Let's start with, of course, the all-seeing eye, right? So we've got, authorized share count of 5 billion. This was recently increased from 2.25. So there was an increase in, we always get worried when you see an increase in the authorized share, but the CEO actually has already addressed this. So I do like that. And we're going to discuss that later in the video. The outstanding is just 2.23 billion, which isn't bad for an OTC company, especially one that's currently in TRIPS. The restricted is just 150 million. The unrestricted is just over 2 billion, and the float is only 1.79 billion, which isn't bad. Again, this is a TRIPS play right now. You can see there hasn't been dilution going on. In fact, in the last 10 years, there's only been 3.8% of the total outstanding shares in dilution. So unlike most OTCs where you can track in like a 5-year period, it diluted 30 to 50%, 10 years there's only been 3.8% dilution by this company. And the company, we'll cover this later in the video, is promising not to do any open market dilution as well. So those things are all good things. Now let's take a quick look at the OTC. So of course the OTC is fully updated because, again, SEC reporting company. So this is important. So when you look at the company profile, business description, they're focused on acquiring, developing, licensing undervalued and established intellectual property for television, feature film, and other mediums, including VR, AR, gaming, IP, acquisitions, purchasing, and option to acquire film and television rights in a literary work, novel, play, and original script. It's key to their business model. So what they're doing basically is they're acquiring high value IPs. So we're talking bestsellers. They're going like Game of Thrones was a bestseller. It was turned into the number one series, television series of all time. So they're going after things like that, high value books, high value comics, high value series, and then they're getting written by good writers and produced by Emmy winning television series or made into movies. That's kind of the value of this. Now the neat thing about this is they're not going after them. They are going after them, but they already own several. So this is not something that, you have to wait for them to start looking for them. They've already made a big movement toward them. All right, you can see from the chart here on Yahoo Finance that the stock's been moving up quite steadily on ever increasing volume, and really in the last week, really we've had some big volume days. I mean, you can see the 50-day moving average has really been steadily moving up, and we're about to cross here. And I don't think that cross is probably going to happen because I don't see this dipping back down into the sevens, but. There's a huge shareholder call coming up on the 25th of this month, and I think that's gonna have a lot of really interesting information. Mark has promised several important updates to projects that we know are ongoing. The Vampirilla project has an update going. The Wish project has some updates going. We're going to cover a lot of this later in the video, but what I'd like you to see is just like the ever increasing volume. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of traders picking up on this stock. I mean, the share structure and the market valuation of a stock sitting right around 2 million market cap, with how much they have going on and the value of the IPs, it's significantly undervalued in the marketplace right now for the assets they've managed to accrue with very little debt and no notes outstanding. So if we move on to their Form 10 application, so there's a lot of really good information in this Form 10. So let's kind of just start by kind of scrolling down through the and taking a look at the financial information, because this is what everybody really wants to know. So Mark Neubauer is the CEO. So he has the major control, 83.4% of all preferred stock of the company. James D. Primera has a small point, but Mark has control, which is good to know. And we want Mark to have control because Mark is a class guy. So Mark, he graduated from Columbia College Chicago. He's in filmmaking, screenwriting, producing, and entertainment business. So, this is a guy you want to lead your entertainment company. He isn't just some guy off the street who says, I'm going to start a crypto company. I'm going to start a film company. I'm going to start and with no background in it. He actually, this is his dream. So he's identified these IPs. He developed them. Yes, he actually owns a very successful insurance company that he's been using to fund this company. So this is a little different than the typical OTC company who opens an OTC company and then funds it on the backs of his shareholders by diluting into the marketplace and, making all these empty promises that never happen. And then just ever increasing the share structure to just eat up our pocketbooks while he benefits and pays himself an ever-increasing salary. Have we heard the story before, folks? I know I have, and watched my money disappear. Mark is a little bit different. He started his own insurance company, has 100 agents working for him. He's poured money after money after money out of his own personal pocket into this company. He hasn't drawn it, like he gave himself a $60,000 salary, almost 10 years ago, waived his salary and continued to not draw a salary all these years. Well, he's taken money out of his own insurance pocket, his own income to support the company, to buy additional IPs. And then he's promised to not dilute, in his recent tweet, promised to not dilute onto shareholders and only use non-market funding to increase the value of this company. How many OTC companies do you know? Let me ask you, how many do you know that are doing that? So let's move on down to here. So summary compensation table. This is what I just talked about. Summary compensation table. Salary, none. During the 12 months, Mark advanced the company $17,000. He advanced the company. The company owes him $135, owes him $118. This is all money he's lent the company. He doesn't draw a salary that we talked about. He doesn't. So there's, like we mentioned, there's no significant debts. He hasn't taken on any money from anybody. The total stockholder deficit of the company is $135,000. There's not millions of dollars owed to this. The outstanding shares is $2.27 billion. There's no big hidden debts. There's nothing that's going to jump out and scare you or surprise you. The only thing on here at all is there's some old convertible notes from 2014 and 13 that have been written off of $25,000 and $90,000. So they were forgiven. Accrued interest was forgiven. The company has determined they are based on the age of the debts, they are determined to be uncollectible and have been written off. So those are the only two things that would have been somewhat questionable on this whole report. The company has also come out recently with a tweet that said they have no plans to do any open market dilution. They have no plans in the foreseeable future to do any reverse split. And this was in a tweet. I'll pull these up in a little bit. The raise of the AS was recently done for mergers, for acquisitions, to potentially add any AI in the future, to potentially add any other valuable IPs in the future. So these are things that, when looking at OTC companies, especially OTC companies in the trips, that we have to be aware of and we have to watch for, because especially when you see these these increases in their share structure. Because right now, like, with the market as tight and as tough as it is, companies are diluting on us all over the place. Okay, so let's kind of look into, how is Mark, we've seen Mark, he sounds like a great guy, everything he's saying looks good, the company structure look good. How is he going to pull this off, right? So what can he do? So this comes down now to the people for me. Does he have the people in place to pull this off? So let's take a look at Mark's people. Okay, so let's talk about the people. So Mark, of course, we talked about him a little bit. He graduated from Columbia College, where he studied filmmaking, screenwriting, and producing. He did spend considerable time at Chicago's famous Second City, writing and directing and improvised acting. He was the writer and producer of Dream Killer, which that short film won Best of the Fest. He also is good friends with Rich Angel. Now, Rich is really interesting. He's a writer-producer based in Cleveland, Ohio. He's written and produced and consulted on numerous feature films in his 10-year career, including Sophomore. He founded a state-of-the-art production studio. It's 4 million square feet in a former Kodiak studio. He is a former board member of the renowned George Eastman Museum. He has a master's degree in the University of Rochester. He's been instrumental in securing prominent pieces of intellectual property, such as the Vampirella, Wish, and Elijah Clay. He and Graham Reynolds' celebrated werewolf trilogy, Highmore. Wow. So Rich is a player. He has access to this huge production studio, so that gives MIKP a lot of sway, right? So now let's talk about one big one, John Levin. So I actually talked to Mark about John. I asked him about John when I saw this on his page. I said, you know John? I said, John's a pretty serious player. He says, yeah, but I don't want to get too much into John. We're going to talk about John at another time. I said, okay, well, I'll do my reading on John online. So I did a little reading on John online, and I was blown away. So John, over the past 4 decades, John he's one of the top guys in Hollywood. He has one of the most respected careers in Hollywood. He graduated with honors from USC Law School. He's worked with creative law agency CAA for 38 years as business affairs executives and motion picture and television literary agent. He's worked on just a couple films you might have heard of, like Mrs. Doubtfire. You might have heard of Karate Kid, Little Miss Sunshine, American Gods, Hannibal. I've heard of a couple of these. Maybe you guys have too. He's worked with people like Brad Pitt, Steven Spielberg, Will Smith. So when you talk about connections in the industry, you've got to know people who know people. And everything is about, having the right handshake at the end of the day, right? So it seems like, Mark knows the right people, and, these are things that we're going to talk about in having the right connections, knowing the right people. Who are you going to be able to tap when the time is right to tap? So, and then as far as, of course, everything in the entertainment business, you have to have a good law team, a good lawyer. It sounds like he's got a good entertainment counsel. I'm not 100% sure if this is still his entertainment counsel, but this is who's on the website. Joseph Lannis, entertainment counsel. Seems like he's a solid guy. I'm not going to go too much into the lawyer side. Now, talking about people he's known in the past as well. He's had some great connections to some pretty famous other people. There's a lot of information out there. People are talking about, George R. Martin. There was I don't know if any of you guys know out there, but Mike P actually owned one of the George R. Martin IPs in the past. Most people know George R. Martin from Game of Thrones. Now, George R. Martin also had another book series. Let me pull this up for you guys. Hold on a second. Okay, so I think I found it here. Okay, yeah, it is. So George R. R. Martin had another book series called Skin Trade. So, of course, we all know Game of Thrones, like best-selling fantasy series, TV series of all time, right? So Skin Trade was actually an IP that MIKP acquired kind of in the, 2013, 2014, I think it was. And they optioned it to a company that had promised to get this made into a TV series. Now, that company, it was a partnership with Mike P. They let Mike P down. This wasn't Mark. Mark didn't F it up or anything like that. It was the other company let Mike P down and didn't get it to production in time, failed on their end of the contract. And this kind of thing happens in the industry all the time. But instead of, Mike P dropping the ball and messing it up and screwing over, George Martin, what Mike P did was they helped introduce George to Cinemax and get the IP optioned over to Cinemax instead, because at the time Mark wasn't able to, because of, he didn't have the financing, he didn't have anything to do, he couldn't get the project to completion. So he got George taken care of properly in the industry and optioned to Cinemax to get the project still going. So, Cinemax took on the deal. George was happy, and he personally thanked Mike P for it. So this is a little thing on George's blog, not a blog, where he basically says he thanks him for it, for getting it on. And it's, let's see what right here. More recently, the novel was purchased by Mike the Preg Production, who played a big part in taking the project to Cinemax. So, he's basically saying that, without us, we wouldn't have gotten the project to Cinemax. So, just little things like that build you, street cred and, in the industry. And so, Mark being able to, when you're able to get the project to Cinemax, how does that look for you in the future when you need to get a project to Cinemax? Or if, George writes a series in the future and he says, hey, Mark, you really helped me out with that last one. Maybe I'm going to give you a shot on this next one. Or, other artists who are famous and be like, look, I really appreciate what you did for this other guy. Those are all things that just kind of take care of you. And by taking care of artists, you take care of your company. Okay, guys, so we're going to go back to the Form 10. Now, why we're going back to the Form 10 is because it has a big section specifically discussing the IPs. Now, the IPs is the most important part of this company because that's our intellectual properties, and that discusses the assets and what they're doing with the assets. So, I love the way they start talking about the assets. There is something truly magical about storytelling that has been with us since humans first populated the planet. Written form dates back thousands of years ago with works like Aesop's Fables and the Epics of Gilgamesh, carved upon stone pillars in the works of literature. It's pretty cool. But if you ever get a chance, just read it. It's neat stuff. But it's true. Today's IP demand is higher than ever before, with streamers and studios willing to pay top dollar for compelling storytelling, source material, and other IP on which to base content with built-in audience potential. This is true. Like, the IP demand is blowing up, especially with the streaming services and millions of viewers and people spending more and more time glued to the tubes. IPs is where it's at, and Mark owns several of them, and they are looking to add more all the time. So the company's primary assets are in the form of the IPs. So we talked about them owning several. They have secured interest from writers on many of these. They hold the rights to the comic book series Vampirilla, and it has included all the characters listed below. And if you look on the screen here, that's the Vampirilla, Pentagon, Alan Van Helsing. They hold the rights to 45 different characters. Now, if you scroll down here, and it says, we are currently partnered with Dynamic Comics, the publisher and a notable animation studio in Vancouver, Canada, with award-winning animated series on Amazon Kirkland's The Invincibles, and a principal who's produced an award-winning feature films including Angry Birds, Star Wars, The Clone Wars, Escape from Planet Earth, and enjoyed worldwide distribution, review, and critical success. We have agreed to produce an animated series based on the Vampirilla universe and Argo project. Whoa. So if I'm reading this right, they are saying that they have partnered the Vampirella universe with 45 characters. They've partnered with a Vancouver animation studio, award-winning, that did The Invincibles, Angry Birds, Star Wars. I mean, we're talking hundreds of $1 million feature films, animated films in Vancouver. This has got to be, we should be able to figure this out, right? Hold on. I got an idea. Okay, Google. Search for Vancouver animation studio that produced Angry Birds, Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Invincibles. Oh, jeez. That wasn't that tough. Thanks, Google. Wind, Sun, Sky. That's what it looks like to me, folks. Invincibles. Catherine Winder, CEO. Ice Age, Angry Star. If this isn't it, you're going to have to shake me upside down. So, Catherine Winder is visionary leader of Wind, Sun, Sky, and throughout her career has worked with iconic. Most recently, she adapted the Invincible comic book. She adapted Angry Birds. The Angry Birds movie, $350 million. Star Wars, Clone Wars. Every same movie is listed here that was listed on that. This has got to be it, guys. So, this is a Vancouver studio listing all the same movies. So, I would say that this is the studio they're working with. Again, this is yet to be announced by the company, but so we'll have to wait for the company to announce it. But I'm thinking that this is the studio, and yeah, it looks like they work with Prime. Wow. So, I mean, if this is the studio, this is a huge contract. They bang out hundreds of $1 million hits. And they're signed up. It looks like they're signed with MIKP to do this comic book series on Vampirella. So this is as legit as it gets, guys, for a Trip Zero company to be signed with a major animation studio with huge employee sets. I'm excited. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one. Wow. Okay, so they also have, so this is the next 24 months. So they also have the rights in Wish. So Wish by Barbara O'Connor, they have the rights to produce all the rights, copies, everything like that. So we are currently partnered with Imprint Family Entertainment. So they did Groove Tales and their principals, including Michael Becker, with a finished screenplay. So the screenplay is already finished by Nickel Fellow, Joey Clark Jr. to produce a feature film. So this is a film coming. We're currently out to directors and financiers to prepare photography, and we anticipate to be on or about spring of 2024. So we're talking 9 months till film time for Wish. Now, if you don't know Wish is currently on the bestseller list and is one of the best-selling preteen books of all time. So this is huge. This is another one. So that's one series from one of the best animation studios in the world. A film coming of one of the best-selling books of all time for preteens. Also, the company has a shopping agreement to produce Silverwing based on Kenneth Opel's book series with the founder of Bardell Entertainment, the original producer of the Canadian series produced in 2003. The founder retained the rights to Silverwing and is in collaboration with the company to adopt this series to screen, seeking worldwide distribution along the development and production process. To date, the logbook deck has been completed for the project, including 45% participation for Mike the Pike, once and if the project is produced. Parties have agreed in good faith and intend to formalize the agreement by late June 2023. So that sounds like we're just waiting for an update on it. So we're mid-July. So this may be something we hear about in the shareholder call. 45% participation for Mike P. The company also has an 11.3% stake in the net profits to the film Beyond White Space, space, which is anticipated to break even this year. So the company was a financer on the film, and its principal, Mark Neubauer, a producer on the film, and enjoyed a theatrical release in 2018, and is streaming on various platforms and distributed by Vertical Entertainment, and the trailer can be viewed here on this YouTube. So they have 4 current IPs, all in various stages of production: the Silver Ring, the Elia Claw, the Vampirella universe, and Wish. Now, all of these are available on their website. So I highly advise you guys to go onto their website, sign up. You can take a look at their IPs. So like their IPs are really hot. You can go onto Wish, and the Wish IPs are great. You can you can scroll through them. The main characters, it kind of shows you all their IP values, some of the stuff that they've worked on. The Wish is great. Elia Claw has lots of great stuff going on. Sorry, I'm kind of going through them fast, but there's just a lot of info on there. There's so many books of each series and stuff. Of course, my favorite is the Vampirella. I love her. I love the comic. I just think it's so interesting. I think it's really going to be the next big superhero genre. Of course, the vampires have been big for a long time, and that whole area is starved for content. And the one thing that we've never had before, truly, is like a alien vampire heroes thing, right? So that's kind of a whole new area for us to explore. So let's kind of talk about real quick, PRs and upcoming events for the company, and then we'll close this out. Okay, so here we are back at MIKP's Twitter account, and so this is kind of where things started getting interesting. They had their Edgar cut in, the Q10 filed. Okay, so they on June 29th they finally did it. They got Pink Current after all their filings in. So the 29th they did announce several updates on projects to share in the coming weeks, new properties to announce. So we talked about the 4 they have more coming. So they have 4 really exciting ones, but they have more coming that they've already. Shareholder engagement and transparency are a priority through this journey. Regular shareholder conferences included. One next month, and date will be announced next week. So we're going to talk more about the shareholder conference, which is really soon. They've got some great. These are some of the spin-off characters. Look at the spin-off character. This is part of the NYX. This is a Vampirella character. Like, this character alone is hot. And I mean hot. So, like, you can get into some of this stuff, MIKP. So this was what I was talking about. To address shareholder questions regarding recent AS increase. As a growing company with several projects underway and goals toward expedited growth, it is necessary to have some flexibility for acquisitions and partnerships in the entertainment and media areas such as AI, VR, and media tech. We have no plans in the foreseeable future for a reverse split or dilution into the open market. So that's what we were talking about. And any shares used will be toward value adds to the company in the form of new IP, properties, mergers, acquisitions, or restricted shares via institutional or private funding of projects. At the end of the day, that's all I wanted to hear from him after I saw the AS increase. I just don't want any more dilution. Like, it's the OTC. This is the world of dilution, it feels like lately. Every time I turn around, I see another update on the OTC market from a company dumping into the marketplace. Please stop, OTC companies. Just stop. Start doing stuff like this, add value through attrition of, company, mergers, acquisitions, IPs, do stuff like that. Stop just diluting all your dang shareholders. Like, we've had enough. Thanks, Mark, for being clear about what you're doing. We really appreciate you. So after that, they did put out another tweet. They said, MIKP enters late stage negotiations for a massive IP. Woo! Iconic American masterpiece pursued by the likes of Marlon Brando, Janis Joplin, highly relevant today. Stay tuned, lots happening amidst the strike. We stand in solidarity with WGA and others in hopes of expedited win-win resolution. Thank you, Mark. We love you for that. And I stand with our brothers as well. Everybody deserves to get paid for their work. we hope for a swift resolution to the strike. We all want to get back to work for our writers and our actors and stuff, but at the same time, they all have families as well. So everybody deserves a fair shake of the pot. Thank you guys all so much for joining today. And again, thank you, Harry. Go Philly. And, we'll talk to you guys again soon. Take care.